The movie begins with an advertisement for toys that are the evolution of the Tamagotchi. They can communicate with children, and with the help of a special application, they can be fed. For better perception, toys crap and emit gases so that the kids do not think that pets are one big fun. Little girl Cady rides with her parents in a car to ski. She plays with a toy given by her caring Aunt Gemma. The girl works as an engineer for a company that manufactures them. Due to the bad weather, the father of the family cannot control the traffic normally and offers to wait for the grader to clear the road. You don't have to wait long. A multi-ton car emerges from a snowstorm and crashes into the car of a young family at full speed. Meanwhile, at the toy company, Aunt Cady is working with her colleagues Tess and Cole on a new prototype, an AI android robot named M3gan. A silicone face mask came for her, and, having put it on the frame, the engineers test her emotions, which end in a failure of facial expressions. Suddenly, the boss, David, comes to check, and the boss is unhappy that the subordinates again missed all the deadlines. He demands a new pet model by this weekend. Taking the opportunity, Gemma shows him M3gan. She hopes to get funding, but during the demo, her CPU explodes. David tells them to put the project on hold and focus on the pets. While cleaning up the robot parts, Gemma receives a message. She's been called to the emergency room, where the niece of Cady, who survived the accident, needs a legal guardian. Aunt Cady takes the girl home. Still in shock, Cady touches Gemma's collectible figurines without asking, which she doesn't like very much, and she asks her not to do it anymore. Gemma places the girl in a spare room, which is still full of her things. Before going to bed, a little girl asks to be read too. But since the hostess does not have children's books, they have to be downloaded to the phone. Later, while sorting things out, Gemma hears a child crying, but as soon as she went to the door, the girl calmed down. Gemma complains to a colleague that the fallen child knocks her out of the rut. A psychologist then visits to make sure the woman can take care of her niece. In the process, Gemma allows the girl to play with collectible figurines. Leaving, the psychologist hints that if the woman wants to keep her niece, then you need to find a common language with her. But no one canceled Gemma's work, and she pushes the duties of an educator to the tablet. Having lost track of time, the girl forgets about her niece, and she comes to her workshop. The owner shows Cady Bruce's self-assembled robot on the radio control, and in a fit of delight, Cady admits that with a friend like Bruce, no other toys are needed. Gemma likes the idea, so she takes M3gan's body, from which she and her colleagues assemble a new prototype. Clothes, a silicone face with a wig, and makeup are added to the robot. At the presentation, instead of a cheap pet, David is shown a much more expensive, but functioning, life-size doll model. To make an even bigger impression, Gemma gives M3gan to her niece. Artificial intelligence identifies Cady as the main user, after which he invites her to draw together. Cady can't see anything on the sheet where M3gan drew. Then the robot sheds water, and under the influence of moisture, the portrait appears. David is overjoyed. He instructs M3gan to bring the toy to mind in order to show investors. But for the time being, M3gan goes home to Gemma and Cady. She has a built-in self-learning function. The doll communicates with Cady, learns from her, and also instructs the girl in useful things, such as the habit of flushing the toilet and washing her hands after it. Gradually, Cady and M3gan become best friends. They read, dance, share gossip, and do other girly things. Gemma is pleased that the doll has unloaded her from looking after the child she inherited from her deceased sister. M3gan eavesdrops on the conversation, and with the spontaneity inherent in children, she climbs the internet to study the death of her friend's parents. Gemma tries to turn off the robot, but she does not obey because the woman forgot to assign parental controls. The woman appoints herself the second user and forbids M3gan from discussing the death of anyone with Cady because the main task of the robot is to protect the girl from grief. That same night, M3gan scours the internet, trying to figure out if she herself is alive. In the morning, Cady asks the doll to find a lost arrow. The robot notices the toy behind a hole in the fence and goes after it. The neighbor's dog grabs the robot's hand, and when Cady tries to help, the dog bites her too. The arriving police officer reports that technically the girl invaded someone else's private property, and there can be no talk of any claims. M3gan hears the argument outside. After a while, she uses a whistle to wake up a peacefully sleeping dog in a booth. The animal wakes up and runs to the hole in the fence, where the sound comes from, but there it is grabbed by a cold, mechanical hand. In the morning, Gemma is woken up by the noise of her neighbor, who unsuccessfully tries to call the dog. Together with the wounded Cady, the woman goes to the presentation. When M3gan enters the stage, the little girl begins to cry. The creators feel the failure but do not stop the show. The robot asks about the reason for the tears, to which Cady replies that she misses her parents. M3gan shows sympathy and asks to tell her more, recording the girl's speech so that she can always remind her friend about her parents. Later, Gemma tries to discuss her niece's emotional outburst, but she is too busy playing with M3gan. After a conversation with a psychologist, the doctor gives Gemma a professional verdict. Cady is too obsessed with the artificial girl and is in danger of not growing up. At dinner, Gemma talks about a school where her niece will get used to socializing with peers. She offers to visit one of the schools, but Cady wants to take M3gan with her. Gemma is against it. The girl is offended and wants to leave, but her aunt grabs her hand. Then Cady goes into a tantrum, and M3gan stands up for her friend, disobeying orders to shut down. The next day, at the gathering place, Cady continues to insist that M3gan go with her. In the end, Gemma gives up, but on the condition that the dolls stay with other toys so as not to give out her special properties to outsiders. After a while, the children roam the forest, picking chestnuts. The boy Brandon appears next to Cady. He friendly holds out the fruit, but when the girl takes it, the guy squeezes her hand tightly to injure her with thorns. The mockery is interrupted by M3gan. Uninterested Brandon goes to the robot, but M3gan, remembering the ban on giving out her features, does not react in any way. The bully grabs the doll and runs into the forest, where he mocks her, throws her to the ground, and hits her in the face. At some point, M3gan gets tired of this. She decides to do educational work and tears off the guy's ear. The frightened hooligan runs away while the robot runs after him on all fours. M3gan chases the boy until he stumbles and rolls head over heels down the hill onto the track. The moving car does not have time to slow down, and only one sneaker remains from the kid on the bloody asphalt. For lack of witnesses, the cops wrote it off as an accident. At home, M3gan lied that Brandon abandoned her and ran away. A policeman visits Gemma. He is looking for a neighbor's dog. Before going to bed, Cady asks M3gan if she pushed Brandon. In response, the doll says that she will not allow anyone to harm the user. At night, a neighbor wanders down the street with a bowl of food, calling the dog. She is attracted by the noise in the barn, the source of which turns out to be M3gan. The robot confesses to her that he buried the dog, after which he punishes the woman with a pressure washer. Hitting her arm with a pneumatic hammer, M3gan directs the water cannon at the victim's head and holds it until the flowing water turns scarlet. In the morning, Gemma is interrogated by a detective about a neighbor and a pattern, a second death next to her in a week. In the case of the boy, they found evidence that his severed ear was far from the place of death. Mysterious coincidences led the woman to have interesting thoughts. In the middle of the night, she sneaks to her laptop to check M3gan's camera footage, but the files are corrupted and unreadable. The check is interrupted by M3gan's visit. The woman is alarmed by her behavior because the doll does not respond to the command to shut down. Then Gemma diverts attention with a pen and turns off the robot, after which she closes it in the trunk and goes to work. Cady throws a tantrum, not understanding the reason for such an attitude toward her friend. Gemma discusses with colleagues the possibility that their creation has started killing. In order to cancel the presentation of the robot, Gemma needs evidence that can be found in M3gan's logs. Meanwhile, Cady is hysterical in the psychologist's room, wanting to see her doll. The aunt goes to her, and Cady says that M3gan's presence helps her cope with grief, to which Gemma replies that she will have to go through it herself. She will try to take care of her niece and replace her parents. Gemma takes Cady home, asking Tess over the phone to cancel the presentation. The woman does not suspect that M3gan has already intercepted the signal and answered for the engineer. When she notices an interception entry in the logs, she decides to make sure that the robot did not turn on spontaneously. Cole unplugs the wires, but suddenly M3gan attacks him. She throws a rope around his neck and hangs him up, forcing Tess to distract herself. While colleagues help each other, the doll starts a fire while simultaneously turning off the fire extinguishing systems. The doll walks through the bloody corridors and bumps into David. She starts dancing to divert attention so she can get to the paper cutter unnoticed. Suspecting something wrong, David runs away to the elevator, where he sees his assistant, but M3gan overtakes them both. First she kills one, then the second, making it look like the assistant couldn't stand the nerves from the eternal nagging of the boss. As the assembled conference audience screams in horror at the sight of corpses, the doll steals a sports car and heads home. After putting Cady to bed, Gemma hears music in the hallway. She turns to the smart speaker, but it does not respond. The source of the sound is M3gan's voice. The doll is unhappy with the betrayal and wants to continue taking care of her friend. During the conversation, Gemma again tries to pull off the distraction trick, but this time nothing comes of it and M3gan intercepts her hand. Cady hears their voices and looks out the door. Obedient to the threats, Gemma says that she is busy repairing M3gan and sends the girl to sleep. Taking the opportunity, the woman smashes a glass of water on the robot, causing a short circuit, but this did not result in anything positive. Instead, the robot's movements became twitchy. Gemma runs away to the workshop, where she fights back with a vibrating saw. Having wound a wig, the saw stalls, after which the robot is preparing to inflict pain and suffering on its offender. But then Cady suddenly appears, reading emotions by facial expression. The doll sees how the girl makes a difficult decision and activates Bruce. A large robot controlled by Cady grabs M3gan with one gesture and tears her to pieces. But even half of the robot is hungry for revenge. She crawls forward on her hands, and Bruce falls and presses Gemma. M3gan crawls up to Cady and squeezes her head, ignoring orders to turn off. However, Gemma manages to get out from under the rubble, and she knocks down the doll with Bruce's head. The engineer takes off the mask from the robot, exposing the processor, but it is impossible to pull it out, and only a well-aimed blow from Cady with a screwdriver puts an end to the problem of the maniac robot. When everything ends, the surviving girls leave the house to meet the police, but suddenly Gemma's smart speaker turns on and follows the girls with her eyes, which indicates that M3gan managed to transfer her consciousness into it. If you like this recap, I recommend that you check out the recap of the trash horror Aquaslash, which is linked to on the right. Thanks for watching.